Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I'm Tyler here with my brother Ryan. Today we are breaking down the Cincinnati Bengals 2024 offseason. We're going to go over all of the departures, acquisitions, review the draft picks, and at the very end of the video, we're going to break down the 2024 schedule for the Cincinnati Bengals and give our record prediction for the season. So be sure to stay tuned for the entire video. Before we get into that, if you have not already, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the Tracy Take, and also ring that bell to get notified whenever new videos come out. We have videos coming out Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And once the season starts, which is just a couple months away now, we will be doing weekly Cincinnati Bengals prediction videos, and you're not going to want to miss those. So like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Ryan, thanks for pulling this up here. We put together just the team rankings for certain statistics based off the Pro Football Reference. That's our source here. So in general, I would just say 2023 was just a disappointing year altogether for Cincinnati Bengals. When it seemed like the team started to get into that form that we know Joe Burrow and them can be, Joe Burrow unfortunately had that wrist injury, which then took him out for the season, which I believe it was like week 11 against the Ravens. Yeah, on Thursday Night Football. And so that kind of did in for their season. They did have some hopes. It was really fun watching Jake Browning play. He looked very solid, and potentially too, I mean, he's 27. There's a team that's rebuilding here for the next couple of years. Whenever he gets to free agent contract, maybe they'll give him a shot. Just put him on the team, kind of see what happens. So it was fun seeing him play. Could definitely tell though that there's a difference between him and Joe Burrow, and so they need him to come out. And so defensively too, it was kind of a tough season as well. They did lose a lot of their secondary going into the 2023 season, and I think some of that shows a little bit in the passing numbers. But also too, I think it was just a little bit of a regression overall. What are your thoughts on that and just kind of the overall defensive performance specifically, but also just the team performance as a whole?
Yeah, to me, I think you look at the running defensive numbers. They have been a top 10 run defense, I think, the last couple seasons, and then this year they fell off quite hard. Part of that, I think, DJ Reader was injured a good bit and wasn't. And when he was playing, probably was not playing at full strength, and so that doesn't help. They weren't super productive on the sack front that they also had been in the last few years. But also, to be fair, in the last couple seasons, that offense had been so good that they didn't get nearly as many true passing downs as they had gotten in the past. They still did a decent job, a little above average in creating turnovers, but still just overall not the production you want to see on the defensive side of the ball, especially from a unit that had been pretty solid over the last couple of years. And on the offensive side of the ball, they really struggled to run the football too, outside of Joe Burrow's loss, or outside of the loss of Joe Burrow. And like that passing game was still able to maintain average. So to me, the big thing was really the running game in this offense that wasn't able to kind of carry its weight.
Yeah. Well, it kind of goes back to just some of the more consistent, or the inconsistent offensive line performances from this team as well, where I think a lot of the times too, especially early on in the season, it's almost like they get stuck behind the 8 ball as games start. So they just kind of come into just passing the ball more consistently because that's what they're kind of more used to. And so, but that on top of it, though, I think it was maybe time for a change for Joe Mixon and Chase Brown coming into second year. They did sign Zach Moss in free agency. We're going to get to that here in a second. So maybe some improvements, but I think also too, it's like really anything can be better than this. I mean, this is averaging less than 100 yards per game over a 17-game season. And it's like I think they should be able to average that. But I will say on top of that, though, too, they are kind of more of a pass-heavy team with how Joe Burrow can sling it around. Chase Brown's going to be able to catch the ball more out of the backfield. And so I can see maybe them being lower in the rushing category just because they're when on, they're more effective throwing the ball.
Yes.
So I think just in general, though, as a whole team performance just was not the season that they were looking to have. But I think it is going to be kind of a newer look Bengals team. They did move on from some key guys going here to their departures. DJ Reader moved on to Detroit. Tyler Boyd went to Tennessee. Chidobe Awuzie, I think I pronounced that correctly. If not, I apologize. Moved on to Tennessee. Joe Mixon, who had been a staple in the backfield, has moved on to Houston as well. Jonah Williams, the left tackle, moved on to Arizona. Nick Scott, their safety, they signed for 1 year last year, moved on to Carolina as well. A couple other guys then too as well moved on, but I feel like not. I feel like everybody above that I listed at much more significant playing time and much more bigger
Yeah.
impact on their performance. Not huge players like that are gone, but still, I think enough notable starters that you take note of.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely, I think more just the veteran role players. Some of these guys like Tyler Boyd and DJ Reader, I think, are maybe they adopted the let's get rid of them a year too early rather than a year too late mentality. But I think those guys were getting into their 30s, and they just wanted to replace them with younger guys. Also, they have some big contracts coming up, so extending those guys would make it harder to bring back and extend
Yeah, yeah.
Jamar Chase or T Higgins or one of those guys. So,
Well, and that's like I get moving on from Tyler Boyd. Like Tyler Boyd is replaceable. I mean, it's
yeah,
do we want to keep T Higgins or Tyler Boyd? It's like no offense. I mean, Tyler is a great name, but it's I think I did have fun in Nashville when I was there, so I think Tyler Boyd will have a good time. But yeah, you just got to do what you got to do, and so I think it's the same thing then too on both the defensive side of the ball. Not really any free agents that are still out there that we know of outside of AJ McCarron, but who cares? They have Jake Browning now. But I think then if they move on to the acquisitions here as well. So we talked about they got Zach Moss, but also they have Chase Brown, so it's going to be a fun dynamic. We didn't mention on there, but his name was on there. But our Smith Jr. moved on, but they did sign Mike Gesicki. So I'll kind of throw it over you, and also that for this one as well, Trent Brown that they signed. But Sheldon Rankins, I think, is an upgrade over DJ Reader. Von Bell coming back to Cincinnati. Geno Stone also. And they did then also get Logan Woodside as well, just in free agency. And so I think they lost, like quantity-wise, more players moved on. But I think the players that they got back, I think, are going to provide a bigger impact than some of those players. Like particularly Sheldon Rankins. I think he's going to help out a lot on the defensive front.
Yeah, I agree. The two players from New England, Mike Gesicki, Trent Brown, neither of them had really great years last year, and Trent Brown's already struggling with his weight, according to reports coming out of Cincinnati. So
Yeah.
I'll be very curious to see how that plays out with those two. I do like the Sheldon Rankin signing. Zach Moss as well. I do like that move. You have your speed. Now you have some power with Zach Moss, kind of be more of your early down guy. And then also, I do somewhat like what they did in the draft. If you followed the channel throughout the draft process, I was not a big fan of Amarius Mims. I see why you take him at 18. But with Trent Brown there, I think you'll be able to get a full season's play, quality full season's play out of both of those guys. And so doing that, I think is a good thing on the opposite side of Orlando Brown Jr. I like the Chris Jenkins signing, kind of doubling up with the Sheldon Rankins move there, getting some meat in the middle. Jermaine Burton, I'm really curious to see how he fits in. His issues were not on the field. They were more off the field on why he fell to the third round. And then, again, addressing that defensive interior, making sure that run defense gets back to what it was with McKinley Jackson. So, all in all, like, I like a lot of their moves this offseason to kind of rebuild and reload to get back to being competitive in this division.
And that's kind of my thing when we were reviewing this and getting everything together. I was thinking about it. It's not even like I think the Bengals team, like because they didn't make the playoffs. They still went 9-8 last year, so they still had a winning record, all things considered, with how horrible they started and Joe Burrow getting hurt just a little bit over halfway through the season. I still think on paper, like I still like Zach Taylor, the head coach, Joe Burrow leading the way, like their offensive weapons. I think they have good edge rushers as well. Just a good defensive setup. I think it was just a down year where they got the injury bug that's to their star players. And so I was thinking about it like it's almost like they just put 2023 in the trash, forget about it. And then it's almost the exact same team. It feels like going into 2023. And I had high expectations for that team, and it's still kind of that same thing as well for this team. So I think they're going to be okay. They got to stay healthy. I think one thing for me is play in the preseason. Don't take 8 games off or like 8 games to warm up. I mean, I think don't.
Yeah.
It seems like they've done it the past couple of years where they get behind the 8 ball early on because they don't want to get hurt in preseason. Ironically, though, then like they get hurt and they start off slow. Because I think if you come out hot or if you practice in the preseason, get some reps, get everything under your system, or get all the rust off, so to say. They come out week one and kind of show people what's up. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. I do agree with your point. Kind of moving on now, I think to the depth chart is because the biggest storyline for me is going to be just how this offensive line pieces together. I feel like that's always the way. That's always going to be the question with the Bengals here is how do they protect Joe Burrow? And I think having Trent Brown and Amarius Mims, I think it is a good kind of combination for Amarius Mims to learn off of. And if Trent Brown gets hurt for a game, then it could be a good start for Amarius Mims. And then he can go in there. I don't want to say no pressure, but if it's just one game, like, okay, you get to start a game and then you're back on the bench and like kind of learn a little bit instead of just being thrown out there and like seeing how you do and hoping that you do the best and not get Joe Burrow killed.
Yeah, exactly. But that to me, I think is a good buffer. I think both of those guys too will play the game similarly because they're both such freaks physically. And so I think that'll be. I just hope Amarius Mims does a better job of being like an actual professional and not have the weight management issues and some of the laziness stuff that Trent Brown has struggled with all throughout his career. So I like this offensive line. I think the interior is pretty much actually it's really just that right tackle spot. And then the other one for me was who takes that third wide receiver spot because obviously you have T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. Who comes in at number 3 and is really effective? Is it Charlie Jones? Is it Andre Yoshavash? Right now, Trenton Irwin is slotted in there as the new number 3 guy. Does Jermaine Burton come in and fill that? Although being in the slot isn't really his game all the way. So that'll just kind of be interesting to see here on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I think it'd be because with Jamar Chase's versatility, I almost wonder if because I feel like Jamar Chase, you can move around all over the offensive line. So like it's I think, and that's where I think it gets this offense really dynamic is because of his athletic capabilities. You can put him anywhere, and then you can set up certain situations with Jermaine Burton, Yoshavash, Charlie Jones, or Irwin. If whichever guy has the hot hand that day, or maybe has been playing better, he can get the start, and then both those guys can be outside, or they can be outside across with T. Higgins, and you can move Jamar Chase around, or vice versa. So it'll be interesting to see what this offensive system looks like. I think kind of moving on now to the defensive side of the ball, the thing for me is I'm curious how this secondary is going to shape up. Just with Von Bell and Geno Stone coming, who they signed free agency also from Baltimore. Is I think the younger guys, I think, are going to take the positive steps forward that they need, and then getting Von Bell back and the Geno Stone who had a good time in Baltimore, I think it's going to help solidify a little bit more on in the secondary. Because I still think this defensive front, I really like this front 7 led by Trey Hendrickson. Then you add Sheldon Rankins in there, I think, to kind of beef up that middle, hopefully help out more in the running game. I think, and then you draft Chris Jenkins as well, who I think is going to help out as well, be a good guy to develop. I am liking on paper how this defense is shaping up. I think another thing too that affected their 2023 numbers was just maybe the offense wasn't putting them in the best situations to begin with, especially too if we're just going based off yards. First half of the season or first part of the season, offense really struggled to keep drives going and put points on the board, and I think the defense just really suffered from that, which kind of inflated their numbers. So, but in general, I like this defense and the way that it looks right here. This probably will be the starting lineup. Maybe some competition with Dax Hill and Geno Stone. Maybe Miles Murphy can start to improve a little bit more to get some more playing time. Who knows? We'll have to see. But just some more notable names there from first-round draft picks for the past couple of years.
Yeah, the biggest thing here is like I like that they have 5 corners: Mike Hilton, DJ Turner, DJ Ivy, Josh Newton, Cam Taylor-Britt, that are all going to compete for playing time, and then you have 4 safeties as well: Von Bell, Geno Stone, Jordan Battle, and Dax Hill. And to me, especially when you have that competition in the secondary, it's really going to bring out the best in those players. So hopefully that can improve, and then also just being healthier on the front 4 specifically, because that's when this defense was really good a few seasons ago. That front 4 was stopping anything and everything that was thrown at them. And then everybody on the back end was just kind of able to play see ball, get ball. And that's when they were picking off Josh Allen to close out playoff games and making plays against Patrick Mahomes in AFC Championship games to go to the Super Bowl. Like that to me is how they are successful. And if they can get back to that, I think that would be a really promising thing for this team as a whole. So let's go ahead and get into their schedule here. So fairly easy start. I think if they don't come out and do what they did the last 2 seasons, where they just take the first 4 games off, they should start 4-2 in this first 6-game stretch. You got New England, Washington, Carolina, and the Giants, I think, are the 4 wins. At Kansas City is going to be a tough matchup, and then Baltimore. Usually, the last few seasons, Cincinnati's kind of had their number, but last year, Baltimore was able to kind of take advantage of some of their losses and get. I think they swept them last year in both games.
Yeah. I can agree with you there. I feel the Chiefs games, obviously, that's going to be one penciled in, and I'm glad it's early on in the season because I think, but it'll make both these teams play like their best football early on, which I think actually might be scary for the rest of the AFC if both these teams get into rhythm starting at week 2. Baltimore is going to be a highly tested matchup as well because Bengals are going to want to come and bounce back after a disappointing season. And Baltimore is going to want to obviously defend their AFC title and go farther than the AFC Championship game. And so those 2 games early on, I think, are going to be interesting. But to your point, though, looking at it right now, unless something major happens to the Bengals injury-wise or they just look absolutely atrocious, New England, weeks 1, 3, 4, and 6, like I'm going to have them as the favorite. And so I think the big meat of their schedule, though, I think comes in this middle section here when you start at Cleveland and you go to Philly. Vegas, I think, could cause them some troubles just with how great that their defensive line is. Then at Baltimore again on a short week, at Los Angeles. And Los Angeles, I think, might be the easiest one of the teams in that 5-game stretch. However, that being said, it is still Justin Herbert. It is still like these Chargers teams. They still have good players on their teams. It's just I think they just had some horrible coaching. So we'll see if Jim Harbaugh is able to pan that around. And then the first time that they play Pittsburgh is in week 13 after their bye. And I think that's going to be a fascinating matchup because I don't know how Pittsburgh's going to be.
I can hear you tapping, by the way.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Fidgeting with my wallet. I don't know how Pittsburgh is going to be this year because it's still Mike Tomlin hasn't had a losing season. They always seem to manufacture a way. And it's an AFC North division game, and I'm pretty sure that's December 1st. So in December, like that's AFC North football in December is always a fun time to watch. And then wrapping up this middle chunk here with Monday Night Football at Dallas, and so which could be a very interesting game. I think that's just going to be a very interesting stretch where I don't know how they're going to come through because I think there are some games that can cause the Bengals some fits just matchup wise. Las Vegas being one of them.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good game. I favor pretty much all the non-division games. I favor Cincinnati, except the Pitt game. So I guess Cleveland and Baltimore, I still somewhat lean Cincinnati. I think I'm able to compare those rosters and feel confident that Cincinnati is going into it with at least the better offense in a lot of those. And that is just making the assumption that Joe Burrow comes back and is fully healthy. This offensive line gets things figured out. And this defense is taking steps forward. So that is with those assumptions. But I think really Cleveland and Baltimore, they'll struggle. Las Vegas, I can see being low scoring. But I'm going to bet on Joe Burrow over Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that they wouldn't be favored.
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah, and so I just think it's going to be an interesting portion of the stretch here, especially too if the Bengals do what they have done and they're actually slow. They come off to a slow start and lose games. That first 6. And then they get behind the 8 ball, as we spoke about. But I think they have a relatively smooth Final 4 games going at Tennessee, hosting Cleveland on a shortened week, which their toughest game of the 4th stretch. And then hosting Denver, and then wrapping up at Pittsburgh as well. And so, in general, I would say easier, probably one of the easier Final Four game stretches that we've seen. But still, you never know. I mean, with the 2 divisional games that late into the season, but in Tennessee and Denver, they have so many question marks that I'm going to be leaning towards Cincinnati, especially too with their overall projection as well. So there's just some question marks to me looking at the schedule on how the Bengals will bounce back compared to last year as well. Can they get off to a hot start? Can they go back to that 2022 team, 2021 team? That we all know that they can be, and they made some good improvements. I mean, they moved on from players who were fine, were good starters, but I think they've replaced them with better pieces.
Yeah, no, I have confidence that they will. I think when this offense is clicking, there is not a better quarterback wide receiver duo in the league than Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. So let's kind of get into our record predictions here. So I had them going 12-5. I don't have them winning the division. I have them. I think they're like the 5 or 6 seed in my like record predictor thing. But I 4-2 in the first stretch, 5-2 in the second stretch, week 7 through 14, and then I had 3-1 in the final stretch, which got me to 12-5. They do lose a lot of the division matchups, which makes it tough for them, but all of their other matchups are very favorable in my opinion. You get to play New England instead of any of the other teams in the AFC East. Las Vegas has a good defense, but I still think that offense is going to struggle with, like, I don't want to say struggle, but it has a ceiling with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew back there. And like, you get to play the Giants, Washington, Tennessee, Pittsburgh. I have a very strong feeling is going to regress even more than they already have. So that for me, like, I think their schedule favors them, especially getting off to a slow start. I think is something that even if they do, they should still win 3 out of their first 4 games.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you. I went with them 10-7. I still believe that's going to be a wild card spot for them. I just think in general, I think they're going to lose more divisional games than they're going to win. Just because I think of matchup wise, I look at the Browns. I look at the Bengals' weaknesses compared to the other AFC North strengths. Like all of their defensive lines are great in my opinion. I mean, TJ Watt with Pittsburgh, you still got Myles Garrett with Cleveland, then you have Baltimore with or just Baltimore's defensive front, just their defense as a whole. Going up against the Bengals' offensive line, which maybe we're wrong, but also I think it's just a stereotypical. I think it's almost kind of just a universal thought now that the Bengals just have always struggled with their offensive line. They keep trying to improve on it, but even last year, like it just wasn't still to the level that you would want to see it at. I think that they don't match up nearly as well as they would like. But then also on top of that too, it's the NFL. Like they're going to lose some games that they should have won. Like maybe they lose to Washington in week 3 randomly. They shouldn't do that. Or later on, maybe Denver's able to sneak one out on them, or Tennessee and Will Levis are able to come up. So I still think that 10-7 is a playoff record as well. It's going to be typical AFC North style football, I think, because this year the Bengals, Browns, and Ravens are going to be a lot closer than together talent-wise than what it was last year. I also think, too, the Steelers, you never know. I mean, as I said, Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season during his time at Pittsburgh. So that's why I went with 10-7. Well, we'll see. I can see it being 11-6. Maybe even see it being 9-8 if they get off to a really slow start.
Yeah, I mean, all in all, I think the hopes are high for the Cincinnati Bengals again. They need to get healthy, be healthy throughout the entire season, and I hope maybe some of these numbers can flip the other way for them in terms of offensive and defensive statistics. Kind of maybe be what they were in 2022 when they were in the AFC Championship. So
just do that.
Or
better be 2021 and make the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm sure Bengals fans would love that. It's just
easy.
They had a really big drop off. I think largely due to injuries. Some players moved on. They had some young players. Hopefully, those young players can develop into the players into like the same quality players that they replaced. And
Mhm.
then I think this team will be in good shape. So let's go ahead and wrap this one up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of the Cincinnati Bengals 2024 offseason. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? And other than that, we will see you guys next time.